Well guys, we have what might potentially be the final season of Splatoon 3, and today I'm gonna break it down. We actually know almost every single sub and special on these weapons right now, so we got a lot to talk about, and at the end, I'll be giving my theory on if I think this is the final season or not. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get into it. So first off, we actually see 8 different specials, so we can talk about which weapon has which special. And let's get my favorite one out of the way. CRB is real. We know the Kraken on the green team is an Octo Kraken, meaning it could only be the Hydra or the Range Blaster, and we see the Hydra throw a screen earlier, as well as can see a Range Blaster shot come out of the Kraken in the fast section of the trailer. And that's not all, we actually know it as Splat Bomb as well, because we can see the Octolink's ponytail peeking out at the very top of it. This is Splatoon 1 CRB. It is back. Now, in zones only, this isn't even that much better than the vanilla kit, but I don't care. This is going to be significantly more fun, and I honestly am just still in complete disbelief that this kit even happened. I am so excited to see it. Speaking of Hydra, we see it with screen twice, and it is just pretty obvious from the angle that that's what it's from. I see some people disappointed by this, but honestly, I think it's a pretty solid screen weapon. It takes a while to charge up. Something that blocks its line of sight so things don't just shoot it ahead of time seems like a good idea. I'd imagine it's a bit more difficult to set up, but it looks like it has some basic synergy. The sub-weapon line looks to be at just about 60%, meaning it is one of these 5 sub-weapons. I'll be referring to this chart by Kiver throughout pretty much all of these, because otherwise it's going to get a bit repetitive. Next up, the Dowser dualies we can clearly see throwing Tri-Strike. The hint that this is Dowser's in the sped-up section is just how much range it has, on top of knowing the edit is on the top right corner. The sub-weapon line on Dowser's is really hard to see, but it looks like it's about 40 to 45%. We can see it near the start of the trailer, which means it could be line marker, burst bomb, or point sensor. Dart really doesn't have synergy on this thing, considering the 2 shots on this weapon only do 52 damage. It wouldn't even combo with it, so I'm just really hoping it's something solid, because I think Tri-Strike on it is a pretty good option special-wise. Speaking of edit is a crab weapon. Wait, is that a crab? There's a crab! There's a crab! There's a crab! There is a fucking crab! Crab spotted! Holy shit! It's really cool to see another one of these. It is, of course, attached to a weapon with cooler, so it'll still probably be its less common kit, but now Edit has a really good option if you already have another cooler in your team comps, and it is a great main weapon. The sub-weapon line here is, again, another 60%, so all the same possibilities as Hydra. We'll have to see what it can get, but it is really exciting to see another crab. We can see the triple splashdown is actually from the Recycle Brella. It's a little bit hard to tell if it's it or the bow, but we later see the bow shooting while the triple splashdown goes off, which basically gets us to confirm that it is in fact Recycle with the splashdown. And honestly, I think this is a good combination. Recycle just does a lot of damage. You would have a very easy time comboing with it. It's very aggressive and it needs to play to get kills because it has no shield. So having a special that really helps you secure your kills or get kill streaks is going to be pretty nice for it. The sub-weapon though kind of kills any potential this has because it's Toxic Mist. I mean, it's better than Dart, but by the smallest margin possible. The lack of damage and pain is just going to make it harder to get the splashdowns. That is positive for the kit and not really have much synergy. I really just don't see why this was picked to have a Mist, other than Mist was a beta Sorella Brella kit in Splatoon 2 before Autobomb got on it, which I hope is not the hidden reason. This weapon really needs to be an exceptionally good Slayer that either has tools to give it even more damage or some form of protection with how weak the shield is, and Mist just doesn't do either of these to me. I would rather just shoot them twice than throw it 9 times out of 10, especially when I'm building a splashdown. The new Splatana has a bubble. I will talk about it more when we get to its kit. We can see it set up bubble multiple times. It's pretty obvious. I don't think it's the worst candidate for bubble. It can pretty reliably guard the inside of it, and it can poke outside of the bubble, so it's probably one of the better options. Bubble's kind of okay right now. And if you look carefully at it, you can actually see it throw a suction bomb during the sped up section. So yeah, it is suction bubble. That is a decent kit, and if the weapon ends up being pretty good, I think we could see it, but we'll get to that later. The Bamboo has one of the best kits of this entire season though, and I'm so happy for it. We can see it just barely throwing Fizzy Bomb as the paint trail gives it away when it's fighting the crab, and it has Super Chump. Bamboo is mostly a zones thing, and Chump is a very solid zone special that works very well with Bamboo, and Fizzy on it is ridiculous. We know that from Splatoon 2. This is a kit with a lot of creativity. It looks incredibly fun and incredibly strong, and it takes over a whale kit, so less whale is always good for me. I am really excited to see what Bamboo players can do with this kit. It looks so fun. That was a lot lot of kits. Sorry, guys. They really did show a lot this time, so that's going to be pretty cool. As always, I'll be breaking down the kits in more detail when we get them fully confirmed on the second channel. So that will be covered there. Check it out if you want more in-depth analysis on all of them. For now, though, let's move on to the new main weapons. So the Stringer, the one we got data mined as Stringer Explosion, is 5 explosions. They seem to be very similar in size, and so I would guess power to the Tri-Stringer, but maybe doing a little bit more damage. It seems like they could be 3-shotting in this clip where they're blowing up the other 2 enemies, so it could be doing 35 damage instead of 30, which I think would be very strong, and in this case makes me think this is kind of like an Explosher type deal, because the weapon doesn't actually have that much range compared to Tri-Stringer, and the bullets are forced to be spread out, which means if you're charging past a level 1 charge, you are actually not one-shotting, so you're playing much more for AoE and the increased paint those explosions output. So yeah, this is a weird explo. You do still have access to a one-shot if they run up close to you with your partial, which is very fast, kind of like how Reflux kills, so that's really interesting. I think this is a cool playstyle, and the weapon looks like it could be pretty solid, possibly the best out of all the bows. As for the kits for this bow, we actually know both of them, as they were both posted to Twitter today, and that's right, that means these 2 new main weapons are getting their second kits immediately. I'll talk about that more in the conclusion, but for now, the kits we have is the Autobomb and Ultra Stamp, which is not great. Autobomb on it seems pretty cool. It can do some damage and locate people, which is nice for a weapon that can hit so easily over objects, given its set of 5 explosions, but Ultra Stamp for it is just a bit tricky. This feels like the same idea they had with Custom Explo, with giving it a way to fight up close, but Ultra Stamp is nowhere near the spot Triple Splashdown is in, so I'm a bit worried this won't actually work. The second kit, though, is Point Sensor and Wave Breaker, and man, I hate that I'm so disappointed about this kit, because in theory, it should make a lot of sense, and I just gotta realize this is how I feel about Wavebreaker in general. Like, Wave is on 8 weapons, and 7 out of 8 of them make perfect sense for it, but Wavebreaker is just so undertuned right now. It's such an amazing special concept that's held back by only getting 1 buff in like 2 years, which is really sad, honestly. Again here, the sub-weapon is at least pretty nice. Sensor is good considering you'll have an easy time hitting over corners. This is really gonna depend on how insane the main weapon actually is, and until we get the damage numbers for those explosions, I don't think we're gonna know that for now. The new Splatana, on the other hand, seems to have the gimmick of a very far charge slash that is also always a horizontal. This has a downside and an upside. The upside is that the hitbox for this is probably way more forgiving than Stamper or Splatana Wiper, meaning dash slashing people is probably going to be the easiest on this Splatana, given that you also have more range. However, the downside is you should not be able to ledge camp with it like you can the other Splatanas, because again, there is no vertical to this charge slash. Outside of that, it's really hard to tell. It seems to be kind of in that middle range value, and the horizontals don't seem too different. The charge time seems a little bit longer than the other Splatanas, but not too bad. It's really hard to see exactly where this weapon is. It's going to depend on the charge slashes. I'm also curious if the charge slash will allow you to kind of traverse the stage in the air, or if it's going to have some kind of limitation, because out of bounds stuff like this is typically not allowed. So maybe if you get in the air, it kills your momentum. I don't know. On to the stages, and yes, stages, because Scorch Gorge is technically slightly different. There's some boxes below it and on the grates. Is this a tiny change coming with the season or a full-on map rework? I have no idea. I am hoping that is not the entirety of the map rework, and I kind of doubt it is. But it's cool to see that Scorch actually does have some changes. The new map is an asymmetrical stage, which everyone kind of expected. It has some moving platforms, which is awesome for the gimmick, and for the most part, I think it looks pretty solid. The middle area looks fun to fight in, and so does the area by your base. The only real part I can critique is it seems the only way to get in from mid to the enemy base is either the top part by this moving platform, or this ramp at the very bottom, which again, very similar to Skipper in terms of where the approach options are. If those end up being easier to traverse than it looks, I think it's going to be a really solid stage, and asymmetrical stages are always just kind of fun. I like the gimmick of the moving platforms, and the bottom of the map having this unique kind of tunnel and bridge area just looks really fun to fight on. Reminds me a bit of Reefer Rum. 2 small little bonus extra details. The coloring on the Bambrella, as some people like to call it, is actually the same color as the Bamboo Mach 3. I just found that interesting, and if we get third kits, Bamboo might look a bit different. Who knows? And secondly, it seems seems like this train station actually does take place near the crater where we started with the game. I could see this as a bit of a hint to being near the end of the game, honestly, because it seems like a cool way to wrap it up to have the last stage take place in the starting area. Maybe they expanded the train station that was here originally 2 years ago. That'd be a cool way to show how much things have changed. Outside of that, we got some news for Big Run. It looks like multiple King Salmonids will be a thing. I don't know if they're gonna have their own boss meter or just share one, but I have wanted that. It sounds really cool. This Big Run is actually called a Big Run, just to really put the emphasis on it. The jelly at the end confused me, but it looks like they have stuff from all 3 idol groups, so I think the theory that the final Splatfest is gonna be Squid Sisters versus Off the Hook versus Deep Cut could actually be real. We might see that. So the idea of a content extension has never really been more bleak. We have all the second kids in the game, and the trailer seems to be wrapping things up. The only real glimmer of hope is those data mined extra 2 main weapons we got a bit back. We really don't know what those are though. They could have been scrapped if the devs thought that it's not worth doing more content for the game, or it could be planned for something later, or it could be planned for some kind of Splatoon 3 Deluxe or giving Splatoon 3 content a year from now when people can buy it for the Switch 2. We really don't know, and personally for me, it's really hard to say. I think we're currently in the doom and gloom period where everyone thinks it's totally over, but I just have to remind everyone that third kits always drop out of literal nowhere whenever they happen. It could be a thing, and it could not. I also don't want to give people any false hope though, and I'm not really seeing any signs that they need to do third kits either. I think that if there is going to be more content though, it might step away from the seasonal system, and the only real reason I think we're bound to get something else in a future update is because I think they need to add the functionality for Splatfest maps and probably Big Run maps in private battles. So we'll probably see something in the future, but that could be an update as small as, hey, in this patch we also added the ability to pick things in private battles, to okay, here's some third kits and you can pick this in PBs. We're just gonna have to see. What do you guys think is gonna happen? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.